Sierra, and as ever, the Rovers were all set to provide a very powerful challenge as well. 15 laps, and we joined the race just about halfway through.
So the man who's won the championship in a Ford Capri is now in the front in a Ford Sierra, a turbocharged one at that. Or is he? Or is he? Because David Brody's going through, and the Sierra drops back. Andy Rouse is down in second place as the two, the Colt and the Sierra, cross the line together. 8 laps completed in this nail-biting 15-lap race. Pete Hall is now about 5 seconds behind. These two are totally dominant in this race. But one now has to ask the question, will the Colt last? Dave Brody has been in a commanding position in the past, only to have engine problems in the closing stages. But he's a doer and a trier and a perseverer, and he will have been developing this engine patiently in the background. And he wouldn't have come out unless he was pretty confident that things were going to be all right. So now, on lap 9 out of 15, you look at the battle for the lead. The white Colt of Dave Brody leads the metallic blue Sierra of Andy Rouse. And in third position, dropping back, is Peter Hall. And there is the British champion of 1986, Chris Hodgetts, from Redditch, with 25 years experience, the man who went to school with Nigel Mansell. And he's now left Barry Sheene and he's decided to clear off and try and catch the leaders. And at the present moment, Chris Hodgetts is in 13th place, having started right at the back of the grid. End of lap 9, Brody leads. 115 miles an hour into the chicane, out of the chicane, over the line, 9 laps completed. Over the sand which covers the oil slick, which was laid by a broken engine in one of the previous races. And they're closing up to a tail ender. But there is now something like half a lap between this flying duo at the front and the 4th place man, who is Richard Longman. Richard Longman is up to 4th place then in the turbocharged Ford Escort. Mike Newman in the big BMW is in 5th place. And this chap on the left is going to get a mighty shock in a moment. He probably thinks how quick he's going, and he's about to be swarmed past by Brody and Rouse. They do it, and it's Richard Belcher, who you saw go out of the race earlier on and has now rejoined. So the definite out of the race now are Mike O'Brien and Mark Hales, whose car burst into flames, which were very rapidly put out by the marshals. And Dave Brody with his lights blazing to let Andy Rouse know he's there. And of course he doesn't need to do that now because he's in front. Comes up to Woodcote to complete the 10th lap, which is 2/3 distance, and you are seeing 2 British saloon car racing masters at work. We're going through that chicane at about 115 miles an hour. Right, left, right, just kissing the curves. And hello, Rouse looks as though he's in trouble. Rouse is in trouble. He's slowed right down. And the gap between Dave Brody and Andy Rouse increases massively. I was rash enough to say that Brody might be in trouble. I little realised that it would be Andy Rouse who would be in trouble, because he's now being caught and passed by Richard Belcher in the Escort RS 1600i, which isn't even turbocharged, as is Richard Longman's car. That means to say that Pete Hall will soon go up into 2nd position past car number 1, Andy Rouse's Sierra, that he, Pete Hall, sponsors. So it'll be mixed feelings for him. There he is, there is Hall, about to get 2nd place in the big blue Rover from the metallic blue Sierra of Andy Rouse. Peter Hall goes through into 2nd place in the Rover, the man who won the championship round at Snetterton. So he is now on 6 points for 2nd place. and Pete Hall is in third place in the class for the championship, and that means to say that Richard Longman will move up into third place. That up into fourth place will go Mike Newman in the BMW. To fifth place will go Alan Curnow in the Ford Escort, and to sixth position will go Barry Robinson in the BMW 635. Leader Dave Brody, and that is 11 laps completed for the man who made a miraculous recovery from one of the most appalling saloon car crashes that there has been in motor racing history, when his car, a Ford Capri, was totally obliterated with him inside it here at Silverstone. Dave Brody's legs were very, very badly smashed. He made a brilliant comeback, and here is Andy Rouse sadly driving into the pits. When I said to him before the race began, "Are you happy and confident?" he said, "Oh yes, no problem. Pole position, I expect to be having a battle with Dennis Leach, but I hope to win it." Dennis Leach did not come out to take part, and now Andy Rouse has retired. And that there in front was Chris Hodgetts, and here is number 6, David Brody. You can see he's got his rear lights on as well as his headlamps. Not surprising, that's supposed to be what happens. And the Colt goes into the right-hander behind Colin Pierce's turbocharged Metro. And there is the British champion, Chris Hodgetts, the British champion of 1986, who's won 7 rounds of the championship in his class. He's the only car in the championship to have had a 100% finish record. Finished in every race he started, but he's about to be caught and passed and lapped, believe it or not, by Dave Brody, who's catching the British champion, Chris Hodgetts. And that, of course, is the difference between having the big turbocharged Colt engine of some 2 litres turbocharged, and having the 1.6 litre unsupercharged engine, which Chris Hodgetts has. The big class which Dave Brody is in is for cars with engines of up to 3.6 litres, and as there used to be in Formula 1, there is an equivalency formula. So if you have a turbocharged engine, it is of a smaller cubic capacity than if it was atmospherically inducted. I hope you understand all that. Now there is Dave Brody on his 13th lap. I suspected that Andy Rouse may just have lost boost in his turbocharged Ford Sierra, and we've just had an official message from the pits to say that was his problem. Meantime, there's 2 cars that we've seen very little of in British saloon car racing on television this year. It's the battle for 7th place between the 2 Alfa Romeo 75s, V6, 240 horsepower engines of Rob Kirby and John Dooley. And it's John Dooley, number 31 from Wrestlingworth, the chartered accountant, who is in that 7th place at the minute, chased by his teammate. John Dooley has been racing for some 20 years, all of it in Alfa Romeo, so there is loyalty for you. Second in the British Championship class as long ago as 1976. Alfa Romeo and Alfa Romeo, they were hoping to have the turbocharged engine for this meeting, but sadly it wasn't readied in time, as a result of which they had to drop in the V6 engines which they've used in the past. But it's the new body shape and the new chassis, and the leader is now on his 14th and last lap but 1. The leader, of course, being Dave Brody, but this is the battle for 3rd. Richard Longman in the little 1600cc RST Ford Escort, T for turbo, 300 horsepower, being chased by shoe tycoon Mike Newman, who comes from Blackburn, where he runs a massive shoe factory. And Mike Newman very much does all this for fun. He has a Schnitzer engine in his BMW, and Schnitzer, of course, is one of the top German tuners. But even so, Mike Newman hasn't got the ideal specification. He, for instance, was telling me that the back axle ratio that he had is not the most appropriate. It's too short, as a result of which he's getting peak revs down the hanger straight much sooner than he should do, and he's having to cruise down the hanger straight on peak revs when he could be going a lot faster if he got a higher axle ratio. But Longman is keeping ahead in third place in the data post Ford Escort. There's Newman, Richard Longman, 39 years old, 20 years in car racing, nearly all of it in saloons. And Dave Brody looks as though he is going to do it, because here he is in the Colt Star Ion, in the lead on the last lap, coming down Hanger Straight, out of Chapel Curve, down to Stowe Corner, up to about 140 miles an hour. Feather the throttle a bit, quite a bit actually, for Stowe Corner, accelerate away down to Club, which he'll be taking as near flat out as makes no difference, knowing that he's on his last lap, watching all the gauges very carefully, his engine performance being monitored by radio back to the pits with that very sophisticated system that he has. And it's going to be Brody's race. He is up to Abbey for the 15th and last time. From Abbey, he goes underneath the bridge, where he is in sight of the chicane at Woodcote for the 15th and last time. The checkered flag is almost within sight. He could now actually kick out the clutch, coast through the chicane and still win, but he doesn't have to do that because the power is good and the victory is his. Dave Brody wins in the Colt Star Ion. He has beaten Andy Rouse very conclusively, and there are the cheers from his pit as Pete Hall in the big Rover comes through into a well-merited second position, and we wait for the third and fourth men, Richard Longman and Mike Newman, and here they are. It's as close as this in the closing stages of the last lap. Richard Longman in the 1600cc Ford Escort Turbo, Mike Newman in the 3.5-litre big class BMW, and I don't see that Richard Longman can lose it unless he goes wrong with the chicane, and I can't see that happening, and it doesn't. So Richard Longman finishes third, just ahead of Mike Newman, fourth in the BMW.